This, okay. This, God, my stomach is growling. Talking about money makes me hungry. It's time to raise your rates. Bangs, I hate bangs. Okay, that was good, that was good. One of the biggest questions I'm asked as a business coach is, Candace, is it time for me to raise my price? Well, inside this video, I'm gonna share with you 7 signs that it's time for you to raise your rates. Hey there, friend. If you're new here, I'm Candace Coppola. I'm your new business BFF. I'm a former wedding planner and designer turned business coach for wedding planners and wedding pros, and I'm on a mission to help you build a profitable business with purpose. And part of building a profitable business with purpose is knowing when it's time for you to raise your rates so your business can keep going and growing and not go broke. So since this is such a big question that I'm asked all the time by the women inside my community for planners, the Planners Playbook, and also the women inside my high-level mastermind, Wedding Pro Insiders, I thought it was time for us to make a video here to talk about the signs that it's time for you to raise your price. It's hard raising your price though. Can we just talk about this for a second? It is hard. If you want to see a very confident person be unconfident, show them that they need to raise their rates. They're going to be like, oh no, I can't do it. What will people think? Nobody's going to hire me. Oh my God, that seems like so much money. And so this is just something that everybody struggles with, no matter how new you might be or even how long you've been in business. I even struggle sometimes to price my own products and my own services. And I'm sitting here telling you what to do. So I've had over a decade worth of experience, and I even get squeamish at raising my own rates. So if you feel like, I know I need to raise my price, I'm just scared, I think that this video is gonna really help you contextualize what goes in to raising your rates. You know, sometimes when we feel like we need to do something and we don't have any evidence or strategy to back it up, it feels really hard to do. But if you have a step-by-step sort of analysis as to whether you should raise your rates, you can use this video to determine whether it's time or not. That's what I'm hoping. I think I'm right. Okay, so let's talk about the first sign that it's time for you to raise your rates. That is, you have gained more experience. Experience is so important in the grand scheme of pricing. It's not necessarily the most important because people arrive at wedding planning very fresh, very new, off of their first wedding, which is usually their own wedding. And they have very limited experience, and they can still plan a wedding and still charge, a reasonable amount. But experience really is one of those factors in pricing that we don't often talk about enough. I want you to think of experience like this, okay? Somebody is going to hire you for 10 hours of wedding planning. And you have an hourly rate, you times it by 10, there's your price, okay? And you're thinking, okay, they're hiring me for only 10 hours of my time. But I want you to recognize that those 10 hours are born out of years of trying to gain experience, years of learning lessons and making mistakes and solving problems and having the experience to talk with authority and advise people on what they should do. So if you have gained experience over the last year, even the last 6 months, then it might be time for you to raise your rates. And I categorize experience as a lot of things. Experience can be maybe you invested in something like the Planners Playbook to teach you about how to be a better wedding planner. And that's an investment that should be reflected back in your price. Maybe you got hired to do an amazing wedding and it was of a larger budget bracket than you've ever worked before, and you got to work with different vendors at a unique venue. That is experience. You've experienced that now, and now you will take that experience and plan weddings even better because of it. So as you gain experience, it's important for you to recognize that that experience can really influence how much you charge. The next sign that it might be time for you to raise your rates is you've increased your services. You know, I love wedding planners. You guys, we are such people pleasers, and there is really nothing we won't do in order to accommodate our couples. Like, we want them to have the best experience. So they're like, hey, will you order us and pick us up breakfast on the wedding day and deliver it? You're like, yeah, of course I'll do that. And there's so many things that we do for our couples that make their way into our packages and our services, and we don't even realize it sometimes that our services have grown, that our packages have grown, and with that comes a growth in price. So if you have added to your services, whether you've added services into your planning packages or you've just added to the services your business offers overall, it might be time for you to raise your rates in order to match the new level of service that you're offering your clients. And here's just a little Candace PSA, a little side note after my years of wisdom, okay? You don't have to say yes to every single thing your client asks you to do, okay? You don't have to make a mimosa bar. You don't have to pick up breakfast in the morning and deliver it. You don't have to hand embroider their bathrobes. Like, you can draw a line. You can say, you know what? I love you, and that sounds like a fabulous thing. We can find someone to do that. And that someone, it's not me. It's not me. I have enough to worry about. So just a little Candace PSA that you don't need to say yes to every single thing your client asks you. Your client is entitled to ask. They're just not always entitled to get what they ask for. Put it on a t-shirt. That is my favorite quote, and I invented it, which is part of why I love it so much. Okay, sign number 3 that it's time for you to raise your rates is you're in high demand. First of all, congratulations. Honestly, it is such a great feeling to have arrived in the wedding industry and people are seeking you out to plan their wedding. They heard about you somewhere, they know your brand, maybe they even heard of you before they got engaged, and they're like, she's the one. She's the only person that I want to work with. When you become in demand, that's a good sign that your price can actually get raised in order to meet that demand. Meaning, like, you can't serve everybody. We need to be a little pickier and a little choosier, and we get to because we're in demand now. So if your business is in demand, you have more leads, more inquiries, and more people who want to hire you than your business can handle, then that's usually a sign that we should increase your price. Now, when you increase your price, you're gonna get people who can no longer afford you. And you know what? Like, we have to have a moment for those people. You know, we'll pour one out for them. Like, love you, thank you. They've gotten you this far in your business. We appreciate them so much, but they can't continue on this journey with us because they simply can't afford the next level of services that you're gearing up to offer. So just realize that, and that's across the board, no matter what sign you say, yep, that's the one I'm gonna go with to raise my price. When you raise your rates, you may say goodbye to a subset of clients getting married at a certain venue, in a certain budget bracket, even with a certain aesthetic that you just can't serve because they can't afford you anymore. And so you're gonna hear more no's from those people than you did before. It's hard to get around. Let me know below in the comment section if you would like a video from me on how to just kind of work through getting rejected by couples during the sales process and like how to navigate that from, you know, an emotional standpoint and also a strategic standpoint. Let me know. But if you are in high demand, congratulations, sister. That means that you should consider raising your price to meet that new demand. Sign number 4 that it's time for you to raise your price is that your costs have increased. Now, I think we can all agree that the cost of living has raised quite a bit over the last couple of years, and that's putting it mildly. You may not see it as much as other people do, but the cost of doing business has raised. Software companies are raising their rates, gas prices have raised, the cost in which you have to pay your team has raised in order to meet their own obligations personally and what they need to make. So if your costs have raised, that's a good indication that you need to raise your price to meet your cost. Now, if you don't raise your price, and oftentimes small businesses, the unsung heroes of the world, don't raise their price and they eat the cost. And you can do that up until a point. But I just want you to recognize that when you do that, you are literally paying for another man's wedding. When you eat the cost of doing business because prices have increased, and you do that on a continuous basis, you're essentially paying for a portion of someone else's wedding. And you have to square that up with your own self and say, am I okay paying for another person's wedding? I would hope the answer, unless it's your child or like somebody you care about, is no, like a hell no. You should not be okay with that. You should want to make a profit, and you deserve to make money also, by the way. You deserve to be profitable. You deserve to make a living, to make an income for your labor, from your labor. So with that said, if the cost of doing business has increased, you should absolutely consider increasing your price. The fifth sign that it's time for you to raise your rates is that you're consistently providing a high quality service. You are consistently showing up and providing an amazing service. A lot goes into making that happen. It's not just a snap of the fingers and then suddenly our clients are well taken care of. If you are constantly showing up and providing an amazing service to your clients, you've spent a lot of money figuring out how to do that, and you're paying a lot of money in order to keep that consistent. There's just no other way around it. You are investing in software and tools that allow that consistency to be maintained. You've probably hired people on your team to support you, and you have hired either subcontractors or a business coach to help you figure out how to up your client experience. So if your client experience has improved and it is a lot better than it used to be, it's time to raise your price to meet that client experience. Now, client experience is a broad term, but it really means anything that the client touches when they're working with you. Your brochures, your assets you might give them, like checklists or a planning binder, the planning software you use, any meetings you have with them. The full experience of working with you is the client experience. And if you have paid a lot of attention to that to consistently over deliver, then it's time for you to raise your rates. The next sign that it's time for you to raise your wedding planning price is that your competition has raised their rates. If the people you're working alongside have like waved the white flag and said like, I can't operate at this cost anymore, I need to raise my rates, that's a pretty good indication that it's time for you to do the same. Now listen, I'll be the first to tell you that I don't believe in basing your price off another person's, ever. I think that's a mistake that a lot of business owners make, and it means that you're building a business that maybe is profitable, that you don't even know because you've just copied another person's price. But if you've been in business enough to have competition and you notice that the people you're competing against have raised their rates, I think you have like a duty to make sure that your market value is similar. Otherwise, you kind of create some confusion in the marketplace overall. And for some clients, they may see you as untrustworthy because if they're vetting you against other businesses and those businesses cost more and maybe even a substantial amount more, they're going to be wondering like, what's wrong with her? Why is she so cheap? So if your competition has raised their rates, that's usually a good indication that you are a few steps behind and you need to get things going and raise your price. The last sign that it's time for you to raise your rates is that your target market has changed. So if you are no longer working with a certain budget client and now you're working with clients who have higher budgets and therefore higher expectations, it's time for you to consider raising your price. When we start our planning businesses, we just want to get work in the door. So we typically work with people who have limited budgets and we charge not a lot of money. And over time, we learn our valuable lesson that is not going to sustain our business, and we realize and recognize that we need to work with a certain type of client who is spending a specific amount or more on their wedding in order to make a livable wage. And you might be in that realm right now where you have slowly climbed the ladder and gone from DIY $500 day of coordination weddings to now working with couples who have more money to spend and bigger expectations to match. That's an indication that the $500 you're charging for day of coordination isn't gonna cut it, and it's time for you to raise your rates to meet the budget bracket that you've entered in. And also just congratulations. It's not easy to shift markets. It's not easy to work your way up in wedding budgets. And if you've been able to do that, I think that's a testament to your tenacity and your ability to grow your business. And exciting things are in store for you. So those are the 7 signs it's time for you to raise your rates. Let's recap them one by one. First, you've gained more experience. The more experience you gain, the more value you bring to the table. Next, you've increased your services. If you've added more services to your packages or to your business overall, it's time for you to consider raising your rates. You're in high demand. People are seeking you out. You should think about raising your rates to sort of lower the demand. I know it feels counterintuitive, but it's the way business is done. Your costs have increased, so if the cost of doing business has risen, it's time for you to consider how you're going to translate that cost over into your price. You are consistently providing a high value service, meaning you are showing up for your clients and providing an awesome client experience. If that's the case, you most definitely should raise your rates. If your competition has raised their rates, that's a sign that you should follow suit. And finally, if your target market has changed and you're now working with clients in a bigger budget bracket, that's a good sign that it's time for you to raise your rates. So those are some signs for you to consider. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. If you think about your business and where it's at right now, which sign resonates with you the most? And do you think you're going to raise your rates? I'd love to hear from you. All right, friend, thank you so much for watching this video. I've linked a video above that I think would be great for you to check out next, and I'll see you in my next video.